Harry, we're here to talk about the pork industry in Western Canada. And it's been a very interesting week and a half. We've had Big Sky Farms enter receivership. We've had Puretone Corp file for creditor protection. So what's going on? What do you see happening here?
The biggest thing is that after 4, 5, 6 years of trouble in the hog industry, where many of them went into a black hole because they just couldn't weather that storm, especially since country of origin labeling started in the United States. Now, at the beginning of this year, it looked like things were going to improve. Then, of course, along comes the drought of 2012, and that just sent the feed grain prices spiraling out of, not so much out of control, but out of control as far as feed grain is concerned for the hog producer. So right now, the hog prices slipped, and, I talked to a couple of producers in the last day or so, and some hadn't been checking prices. About a week ago, one told me, well, he's going to be losing about $25, $30 a hog. Now he tells me it's more like 60 or 65. So that's what has been happening. Puretone, to their credit, they've been working hard for the last 2 years. They have been streamlining and getting everything into play so that they could weather this storm. But right now they've got 30 days to reorganize to see what will happen.
Mm-hmm. Now, and Puretone is slightly different. They have a couple different breeding companies as part of their company, do they not? They're kind of Puretone Corp is kind of an umbrella to a few different lines, so they're quite vertically integrated, are they not?
They are vertically integrated. In fact, they have 3 feed mills. There's one in Winkler, there's one in Arborg, and there's one in Niverville, and there might be another one. So they are completely integrated, and so you'd think that they would be able to weather this storm, but they did some consolidation back in the 90s and the early 2000s that, when you look at hindsight, of course, it's 20/20 vision. And at this point, it may or may not have had something to do with this.
So now, realistically, though, I mean, I was reading on the news this morning, the SAS Pork was talking about how they see these feed prices coming back down and profitability returning to the sector by May. But I mean, we're September, so that's a long time to lose $60 a hog between now and then. But I mean, realistically, what happens now if we've got one in receivership and one in? How do the processing plants stay busy if this is happening? And this isn't forever. These feed prices likely are not going to stay this high. So what's the solution even?
I saw an article with Don Jansen. Don Jansen is the president of High Life with the processing plant in Neepawa. And Don says they are weathering this storm, not necessarily quite well, but they are weathering this storm. And they're waiting for things to change. But he said we are a little bit different because we have the processing plant. When the pork price goes down, they can recoup some of those losses. Right. And Maple Leaf is in the same position. The key thing there is, and I had a chance to visit a little bit with Scott McLean of Maple Leaf, and so he said, we are concerned. We are absolutely concerned that we're going to continue to get the number of hogs we need. Yeah. But they have their own barns. But you take Big Sky, some of their pigs were going to Ole Mill, some were going to Maple Leaf, and Puretone. They were all going to Maple Leaf, and they still are.
Yes, yeah. And so, but I mean, this has to be, for Maple Leaf, they've got to be looking at, how do they maintain numbers to continue their processing facilities through this as well. So that's a big unknown.
8,700 pigs a week is what they need in order to keep that plant going.
Yeah.
When you look at all the employees, and this is the other thing about it, and is that they have close to 5,000 people that are employed. When you look at Maple Leaf, you look at their plants in Winnipeg, and you take what's going on. That's a huge number. Brandon, in part, was built on Maple Leaf. So we don't just have hog producers and hog companies. We have families.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do most of the grocery shopping for our family. Pork is cheap and still cheap. And is that part of the problem? Should that have changed? Could that have helped this? Or is there just not that sort of flexibility in the market? People would just not choose it then and swap out for something else.
And you're absolutely right. And not only is it cheap, the quality is so good. I
It is,
just
yeah.
saw, a newsletter that comes out daily from the Chicago Board of Trade, and they say pork exports in July continued to track above year-ago levels, but the trend for much of the year has been towards lower export volumes. They are basically saying with the price of pork dropping a little bit, the exports may well stay there. So I don't think they could really have done anything else with the prices. Right now,
Yeah.
when you see $8 corn, I had a farmer, Dale Fossey from Starbuck,
Hmm.
call me this week. He says, Harry, I've got hog producers knocking on my door offering me $6 a bushel for barley. And he knew that those guys were going to have trouble with it, but they
Yeah.
were willing to pay it because it was cheaper than corn.
It's still cheaper than corn. Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess this is something we're going to have to keep tabs on. We'll see if some rationalization or some more vertical integration happens through this, and we'll see if feed prices come back down, how the hog industry in Western Canada looks in a couple months. It's going to be a tough couple months for a lot of people, a lot of stress on a lot of families, that's for sure.
I know I talked to one individual that's been helping hog producers. He said they're coming to him and asking him, how do we not make money, but how do we survive?
Yeah,
And that individual was telling them, get rid of your pigs now.
yeah,
Because you've got at least another year. They've got a cycle now, and then
yeah,
another cycle in 4 or 5 months from now, where the price of corn will stay at this, or the price of
hmm,
feed. So he's saying, liquidate now,
hmm,
keep things in order so that when you get a chance to get back in, you're ready to go.
yeah,
Is that good advice or not? Who knows? But
yeah.
that's what one person is telling some
Yeah.
producers.
Well, and it's also, I mean, to keep in mind, if enough people liquidate, you know, sows still have to gestate and still have to make piglets, and that takes time. So being able to then, sort of like with the cattle industry, with the cow herd at record lows, they don't just magically appear a month later because you're ready to get back into beef, right? So, is it good advice? Is it realistic for everyone? I think this will just be the exit of quite a few hog farmers, and that will just be the end of their raising pigs, I think. Because you can't just magically get back into it later on. So, yeah,
Especially here in Manitoba, we
yeah,
have that moratorium
yes,
on
yeah,
barns, and people are finding out after those 3 years when they went out of
hmm,
business 3 years ago under that buyout by the
yeah,
federal government. They're checking their barns, and they aren't nearly in the shape they were
yeah,
what they were 3 years ago. So there's a
yeah,
whole different ball game there.
yeah,
But you know what? The independents, the farmers that have been at it for a long time, they are the ones that will most likely disappear first, and are. And so,
hmm,
how many will we have left of those independents? It's going to be hard to say.
yeah, absolutely. All right, Harry. As always, very informative. Thank you so much, and we'll talk again
Anytime.
soon.
Thank you very much, Lindsay.